of Worship, your source for commentary and discussion on worship, theology, and culture. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones. Hello and welcome to the Act of Worship podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones. Thank you for joining me today. We are today in Psalm 142. If you read in your Bible, there is probably a title given to it that simply says something like this: A Maskil of David when he was in the cave, a prayer. This psalm is the complaint of someone at the end of his resources. And as I mentioned, these next several psalms are composed by David. This is one. And the title gives a specific instance, when he was in the cave. And interestingly enough, except for this instance, historical titles for psalms are found only in the first two books of the Psalter. So after book 2, so books 3, 4, and 5, except for this instance, when there is a title given, it was not in the original Psalter. This was. So this is obviously a time when David was in hiding. It was a prayer. And so it is an earnest plea for God to help him. Similar to what the last psalm was, this is very similar in its context and in its meaning. So let me read for you these 7 verses of Psalm 142. With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see. There is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me. I want to point out that we've seen this several times in the Psalms, these prayers that are laments and an earnest plea, even the curses, when the psalmists call down curses upon their enemies. David here asks for God to help him and specifically says, bring me out of prison. This is a figurative language, but bring me out of prison, and he gives a reason. He says, that I may give thanks to your name. So the reason that David wanted God to act was not just for his comfort. In fact, that was probably a very tiny reason on his list of reasons. The main reason, the primary purpose he wants God to do that is so that he can give thanks to the Lord. It is all about his glory. So when you read the Psalms and you read these prayers, laments, curses, it points back to the foundation, the reason that they are calling out for God to act, and that is his glory and his justice. It's not just so that, our lives are better, so that I'm more comfortable, so that I'm out of this situation. It is so that God is glorified. In verse 3, the psalmist here, David, says, when my spirit faints within me, you know my way. The psalmist was exhausted from persecution. In verse 4, look to the right and see. The right, this means the place where one would expect to find a helper. He wants God to see that there is no one on his side, or so he feels that way. And then in verse 7, bring me out of prison. According to the title, the reference is to the cave where David hid. And in later use, the prison could be used any situation that holds a person captive, including literal prison. But this is applied to any situation where someone feels trapped. And he says in verse 7, the righteous will surround me. So David looks forward to a time, he trusts God, he believes God, and he looks forward to a time when God will be with him and he will not be alone. So I have set this to music. I've tried to present the spirit of this text of this psalm in the music, and so you can hear that in this short setting of Psalm 142. Thank you for listening today to the Act of Worship podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones.
My supplication make. I pour my thoughts out to the Lord, to Him my trouble take. For when my soul is overwhelmed, my every way you see. Upon the path on which I walk, their traps were laid for me. None notice to look to my right, no one regards me there. There's no escape for me to take, and none to show me care. I cried to you, O Lord, and said, you are my refuge true. And in the land of those who live, my portion is with you. Since I'm brought low to misery, oh, listen to my cry. Save me from persecuting foes who stronger are than I. So out of bondage bring my soul, that